And our Chase team has also reached Roland Paris in our nation's capital. He's director of the Graduate School of Public and International Affairs at the University of Ottawa. He's also a former foreign policy advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Roland, always great to have you on the program. If you were whispering into Trudeau's ear right now, what would you say? Make your message all about this when you speak in the House today before Zelenskyy.
Well, I think it doesn't take rocket science. This is going to be a message of solidarity that Trudeau is going to be expressing. I would expect that Zelenskyy will thank Canada for its many years of support of Ukraine and for its current support, that he'll call for more, undoubtedly, as he has been repeatedly. And I think it'll be an inspiring speech because he's an inspiring figure, and also a preview probably of what he'll be saying to the U.S. Congress when he addresses that body tomorrow.
We'll certainly be carrying that live for our viewers right here on CBC News Network, so they will not miss a thing. We already heard in my colleague Travis Danraj was speaking with the Foreign Minister Melanie Joly about those new sanctions from the government targeting individuals, 15 of them known to be, I think the word was enablers, supporting Vladimir Putin. Is that enough? Is there more to come? What else should we be doing?
Yeah, I'm sure that there's more to come. I mean, the big picture here is that we've seen a level of unity and resolve from Western allies and democracies elsewhere that would have been very surprising even just a couple of weeks ago. And this is Vladimir Putin's legacy, is that he's managed to rekindle the resolve and the solidarity of the democratic world, which had been flagging for a very long time. But of course, Canada can be doing more, and other allies can be doing more. We could be providing more weapons to the Ukrainians. We could be putting more economic pressure on Vladimir Putin and those around him. And we could be providing more humanitarian aid and fast-tracking the arrival of Ukrainian refugees to Canada.
You know, there's always that analysis that when a country is divided and polarized, a war will unite people of that country. And we're certainly seeing, you know, Ukrainians unite, mothers and daughters leaving to go to safety, and fathers and sons, uncles, etc., staying to fight as civilians. Do you think then, give me more on how this has united the world in what can be very polarizing times?
Well, I'm not sure it's united the entire world, because we're seeing countries like China that are trying to essentially keep their head down, or
I'm leaving China out of the mix.
Yeah. Well, you know, what we've seen is countries like Germany suddenly decide that to discard its post-World War II identity as effectively a pacifist country, and to recognize that hard power is now necessary in this new era that we're facing. And I think that it will have spillover. In a way, the silver lining here is that the democratic world has opened up, has woken up to the kinds of threats, not just from Russia, but potentially from elsewhere. And, you know, there are bigger questions for Canada to be asking, even beyond this conflict. Are we prepared to invest in the kind of capabilities that we will need to defend our allies and to protect our security and sovereignty in North America? We have lived through a very long period of relative peace and security. We are unfortunately moving into a much more dangerous time, and we need to be ready for it.
When you were advising the Prime Minister's in foreign policy, obviously, Roland, you were very aware of discussions that were happening in other nations. So if you were to put that hat on now, as you attempt to give me some understanding of what's happening behind those closed doors in the Kremlin, what are the conversations? What is the mentality happening in there?
Well, you know, I could tell you more about, or guess about, what's happening behind closed doors among Western allies than within the Kremlin, because that's always been very difficult to penetrate. But my guess is that Vladimir Putin is relatively isolated. He's surrounded himself with people who, as we saw in public displays of meetings with his advisors, have been cowed into fear and into not contradicting him. I would expect that Vladimir Putin is absolutely furious about the performance of the Russian military in Ukraine. The advance seems to have been...
I'm just going to jump in, Roland, for a moment, because the Prime Minister is speaking with reporters. I'll come back to you. We'll listen in live here on CBC News Network to Justin Trudeau.
Tous très hâte de l'entendre, mais de pouvoir lui démontrer notre appui complet et soutenu.
Sir, in English, how can you refuse a no-fly zone at this point?
What we're doing today is getting an opportunity to show how much Canadians are supportive of Ukraine and of President Zelenskyy, while at the same time being able to hear directly from him as he speaks about what's happening in his country and demonstrate that across party lines, across the country, we stand with Ukraine. I continue to speak with him regularly about things that we can do, and we will continue to work on those. Merci tout le monde.
All right, you heard the Prime Minister there. Sorry we didn't get translation out to you in time, but certainly sending that message of unity. And that's what we will hear, I suppose, when the Prime Minister addresses the House of Commons just before the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy. I was speaking just before I so rudely interrupted him, Roland Paris, former foreign policy advisor to the Prime Minister. But Roland, you understand what happened there. I mean, the Prime Minister comes to the microphones. Of course, we want to get on that because we want to keep our viewers informed. And you're doing a great job of that during our conversation as well. I want to ask you about one thing. When we were talking about that expression of unity, and you know, not including China in that, but you talked about some of the changes in Germany. From the EU, is there enough strength coming? Because there are three leaders, I think it's Poland, Czech Republic, and Slovenia. They're going into Kyiv, which is under a 35-hour curfew, against the advice of the other EU members. What does that tell you about unity, or is that even sort of breaking down?
Well, I think that, I mean, they are there, they say, with the approval of the European Union. I don't doubt it. And the European Union has already taken steps that we couldn't have imagined from the European Union. It has essentially decided to spend hundreds of billions of dollars for weapons for Ukraine. This is an organization that kind of represented a more peaceful world beyond conflict that is suddenly rediscovering the importance of hard power in the face of this kind of threat. But of course, there will be different points of view within the European Union and within NATO, and the countries that are closest to Russia are the ones that naturally are most fearful about the potential for a Russian victory in Ukraine. So that's why you see those nearby country leaders taking the remarkable step of traveling to Kiev in the middle of this war zone. It will send a very, very strong message of solidarity.
I want to thank you for your insight, Roland, and you be well. That is Roland Paris, former foreign policy advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.